listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host Sana, where we slow down to ask the deeper, meaningful questions that shape our bodies, our minds, and our futures. Now, have you ever been told that your illness is just your genetics? Or that chronic disease is something you'll just have to manage forever? Well, I have been told this question multiple times. Now, what if that wasn't true? What if healing didn't mean more pills, but more understanding the root cause? Now, listeners, today's guest is Dr. David Bilstrom. He's a quadruple board certified functional medicine physician and the medical director of the International Autoimmune Institute. Now, hear me out. With nearly over 30 years of experience, Dr. Bilstrom is redefining how we approach autoimmune diseases, gut health, and even our genetic future. He believes that illness due to aging is a myth until after 90, and that what we do today could shape the health of the next 6 to 8 generations. So let's get curious, let's get honest, and let's go deeper. So, Dr. David, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Sana.
Okay, Dr. David, you have helped thousands reverse autoimmune conditions by treating their root cause. I mean, this is something that, many of us we deal with every day, every moment of our lives, and we often get to hear that, this is something that we have to kind of fight with forever. So, in your words, what is the real root cause of most of these chronic illnesses today?
Yeah, I think there are certain things that happen that we just inherently know the body will fix. So, like if we're running around the house in bare feet and we kick a chair leg, we hop around in terrible toe pain. Well, apparently we know so much that our body can heal that we don't think we're going to hop around in terrible toe pain our whole life. We know that our body can fix it within a couple minutes, and then we try not to do that again because it really hurt. But to your point, when it comes to these chronic health issues, it's easy to be told by a medical practitioner or kind of think to yourself, well, I have this, health issue. I'm gonna have it forever. And that's really not true. The body is so smart when it comes to healing. If you stub your toe and you're in terrible pain, the body fixes it. But when you have these health issues, the body is just as able to turn things around. And fortunately, the science is very clear on what has to happen to keep the body healthy, but also what has to happen to reverse disease process and give the body a chance to fix whatever the problem is. And so, um, you had talked about epigenetics and how we can help not only ourselves but future generations. So we used to think that our genes, the DNA in our cells, and it's the DNA, the genes in our cells that tell the cells what to do. Well, we used to think whatever genes we have from our parents and our grandparents, we're stuck with it. Hopefully we got good genes. Hopefully we didn't get too many bad genes, including you may look at your parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles and go, geez, I see some what I think is bad genes in my family. They're getting health issues that I don't want. I hope I didn't get those. But as it turns out, it's not what genes you have, it's which ones get turned on and turned off. And so this is called epigenetics, the things that alter gene expression without changing the genetic code. And it turns out in every cell in our bodies, we have a lot of bad genes. We got to turn them off. We have a lot of good genes. We got to turn them on. So when people develop health issues, what happens is you're turning on bad genes and turning off good genes in every cell in the body at the same time. And then you start getting one health problem, and then a second, and a third, and a fourth, and beyond that. And so anything that will throw the body off tends to throw off epigenetics, but then also the things that we can do to improve our health and reverse chronic disease. Some of the most powerful things that we can do to fix it work through epigenetics. They're actually turning on and off genes in every cell in our body. And there are some very specific things that tend to alter the health of the body that we need to fix. And so one thing that people miss is infections. Now, infections that are obvious infections. So, like if we get a cold or a flu, we might get a high fever, we might get chills, and we say, "Oh, I know I have an infection." Uh, Malaria, you know when you get malaria. Um, Other bad bugs, other infections that get into the body and they hide from the immune system. And so you don't see the fever, you don't see the chills, you don't see the obvious signs of an infection. And then infection over time just kind of creates this chronic smoldering inflammation that just builds over time. And then you start getting all this inflammation, you start getting health issues. So the classic ones that do that are things like all the tick-borne diseases, but also things like herpes virus 6, Coxsackie virus, the Epstein-Barr virus, chlamydia, not a sexually transmitted chlamydia, but a different bacterial infection. Mycoplasma is a very common one. And those are the ones that get into the bloodstream and start creating problems all over, but also there is almost universally gonna be a bad bug, an infection within our gut that then gut off, and then when the gut gets thrown off, it starts driving a lot of other things that will create this chronic disease like vitamin deficiencies. You start creating hormone imbalances and deficiencies. You start creating toxicity. The gut is ideally the organ of detox, so we gotta poop, have bowel movements to get rid of toxins from our body. When the gut's disrupted, we don't get rid of toxins. They actually reactivate and reabsorb back into the bloodstream and then build over time. And you kind of put all these different kind of things together, including inevitably the stress hormone cortisol gets stuck into stress mode. And you start putting all these things together, and then this is what will create every chronic health issue in children and adults. But because we know what causes this, we're in a good position to either prevent it in the first place or reverse the whole process and get rid of the chronic disease.
Oh, that is so, so interesting. So interesting. And that really challenges how we have been taught to think about chronic diseases. Um, so you have said, also said that illness because of old age is a myth until someone reaches 90. And I'm really curious because this is a bold statement. So can you walk us through the signs or the patterns that prove that is true?
Yeah, so this comes from a lot of the research the last 10, 20 years about longevity, about how human bodies, live and self-correct and fix things, ideally to not just increase lifespan, but increase health span. Because if we're going to live longer, we want to live healthier. And so, I get a lot of people that come in, let's say like in their 20s or their 30s, and they have all these health issues, and they say, I think it's because I'm getting old." And I go, "No, no, 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 you're not getting old." But then again, I have 50, 60, 70-year-old people come in and say the same thing, "I just think I'm getting old." And I said, "No, the body is too smart to let age start creating health issues, at least until you're 90." Now, truly, the longevity literature tells us that if the human body is allowed to do what it can do, truly, we could live long, healthy lives beyond 100 years of age. So 90, it might be a conservative estimate. So the body is always trying to self-correct, something happens, fixes it, and this is how we stay healthy. But if these underlying mechanisms that will drive chronic disease start rolling along, then the body can't fix things, and then the body gets stuck with health issues. But this is where we go in and we say, "Okay, well, we know why the body might be having a hard time fixing this, whether you're 20, 50, or 80." We put the body in a position, we get rid of kind of what's in the way, and the body goes, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Now that you got this thing out of the way that was holding me back from fixing this, well, now I can fix it." And this including I have people in their 80s who maybe have a health issue since they were a child. A classic one that I like to tell is a woman who was 84 and she came in with a lot of health issues. And I'm going through her health history, and one of the things that she had mentioned is that she has tinnitus, ringing in the ear. And I asked her about that, and she said, "Oh, well, I'm just used to it. Yeah, I've had it since I was a 6-year-old child, And, I got other things that are more pressing now, uh, but then when she came in the next time, we made a few changes, like, we started using this product called pH structured silver solution out of Canada, a nano silver product that kills all the infections that drive chronic health issues. We put her on that right away because we know we got these infections even before the test would come back and tell us exactly which one. It'll get rid of any of them. So then she's back 6 weeks later. We're going over some of her lab work, and I'm asking her, if she's starting to feel any better. And she said, yeah, a little bit here, a little bit there. And then I say, well, what about that tinnitus? What about the ringing in the ears? And she goes, "Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it's gone. Oh my gosh, I've had that since I was 6 years old." And I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, I know because I have it right here in my piece of paper." Um,
Mhm.
it was a great learning experience for her because, it was like, well, no matter how long something's been there that you don't want, your body's been trying to fix it the whole time. Your body knows how to fix it the whole time, but something was getting in the way. All we did is get that something out of the way enough that she fixed it, even though it'd been there almost 80 years for her.
Wow. Wow. That is so, so inspiring. So inspiring. It's so empowering. And it's kind of a bit confronting as well. And I absolutely appreciate the fact that you are addressing our bodies, as a separate entity here, not exactly a foreign entity, but it's kind of a part of our entire composition. That your body is smart, it knows how to heal, but something in there is blocking that process. So I can so much, it's actually very enlightening in a way.
It is, and it's really, I think we totally underestimate how good our bodies are at healing,
Mhm.
especially when we think, well, we have this health problem, the body can't fix it. We're just totally underestimating the power of the body.
Yeah. It's kind of the placebo effect. We are just kind of inbred in the mindset that, this is old age, this is a problem, so it's natural. So let's just sit with it.
Mhm. Exactly.
Okay, and now moving from old age, let's talk about kids. Doctor, you emphasize resetting epigenetics before age 19. This is something I'm so curious to know because this is something I'm not aware. What does that look like in real life? At the dinner table, or in schools, or at the pediatrician's office.
Yeah, so epigenetics, which genes get turned on and turned off, gets passed down from generation to generation. And if somebody has had a health problem, a trauma, uh, uh, like adverse childhood events, things like divorce, separation, substance abuse, somebody getting thrown in jail, verbal, physical abuse, sexual abuse, trauma, those are the kind of things that turn, bad genes on and good genes off. But even as an adult, we have trauma that's gonna flip epigenetics, but we have vitamin deficiencies, we have infections, it all flips the genes the wrong way. Well, the epigenetics gets passed down from generation to generation, and so this is where you hear things like generational trauma,
Yeah.
where past generations impacts negatively the health of the, current and future generations. And so in a perfect world, you like to optimize epigenetics before conception, before a child is conceived. Because that way, when you optimize epigenetics and the man and the woman, you're helping them, but then they get to pass on cleaner genes, not just to their own child, but to the next 6 to 8 generations. The corollary is we're the product of the previous 6 to 8 generations, and if something happened and they didn't optimize their epigenetics before they had children, we're suffering because of that. Now, ideally in children, what you like to do is you like to optimize epigenetics by age 19, like you mentioned, because if you can optimize epigenetics by age 19, you've locked them in place, in a good place, and they stay healthier their entire life. And if they have children after age 19, well, then they get a chance to pass on those cleaner genes to the next 6 to 8 generations, and those generations are gonna be healthier because of what, was done when that person was a child.
Mm. Wow. This I wasn't aware about. This is something really new, and it's a really powerful concept. So, um, let's talk about how to do this. So, how do parents can um, start advocating for this kind of prevention when most of the times the system around them isn't always aligned?
Yeah, and when you talk about these kind of things, somebody might think, "Oh my goodness, this must be very complicated." Yeah, it must be very complicated to do this profound thing because something this profound, it can't be easy. But truly, it gets back to the body being so smart. And so, the vast majority of things I might do in clinic work through epigenetics. And so, for example, Harvard here in the United States did a big study back about 16 years ago. There have been two previous studies. The second one was done in India, and the initial two studies suggested that perhaps meditation works through epigenetics. Well, Harvard heard about the study, the second one that was done in India, and they said, "Well, let's look at this really closely
Mhm.
did our best research, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna see if this is actually true, that meditation works through epigenetics. It flips genes the right way and all this, and so what they did is they took this large group of people that had been doing some kind of relaxation, something every day for between 3 and 27 years. So things like meditation, yoga, deep breathing exercises, tai chi, qigong, repetitive prayer, progressive muscle relaxation, all these different sort of relaxation techniques. And then they had another group had never done this stuff. And what they looked at is their epigenetics, which genes get turned on and turned off between the two groups. Well, what they found was there was about 2,000 genes that were turned on and off differently between the two groups. And they said, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic." Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this group who's never meditated and we're going to teach them how to meditate. And we're gonna ask them to meditate 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 8 weeks, and then we're gonna recheck their epigenetics and see if any genes change for them to match the long-term meditators. Well, after 8 weeks when they retested them, they go, "Oh my goodness, of the 2,000 genes that were expressed differently between the 2 groups before we taught the new meditators how to meditate, now 400 genes in the new meditators have flipped to match the long-term meditators." And they say, "Oh my gosh, that is so cool. What did those genes do?" Well, those are the genes that code for inflammation. And when they get flipped the right way, they keep away the inflammation that drives chronic disease of all kinds. And they go, "Oh my gosh, well, this is how meditation works and why meditation basically helps everything because it's working through epigenetics." Now, the two previous studies suggested this. There's already data out there that acupuncture works the same way. So people maybe weren't very surprised that they found this, even though the more traditional allopathic, not familiar with this kind of stuff, were quite surprised. But I think one of the big take home messages was they only asked them to do this for 8 weeks. It wasn't like you had to do this for 5 years to get the benefit. But also, here's Harvard that asked these people to do 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 8 weeks. Well, on average, the people only did it 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week for the 8 weeks. And so not only does this change happen very rapidly, within 8 weeks, but you don't even need to be perfect. Just a little bit of this stuff, oh my gosh, what a huge impact on the body. And so when we're fixing things also, the body inherently makes things that work through epigenetics. And so, for example, a lot of people hear about the good bacteria in the gut, how the good bacteria, bad bacteria, that intestinal microbiome is so important. Well, for example, the good bacteria are supposed to make things called short chain fatty acids. One of the most important ones called butyrate, butyrate. Well, butyrate comes in a capsule. We use it all the time because butyrate almost exclusively works through epigenetics. Whether we give it to them as a capsule or the good bacteria make it. Now, because part of the reason people get not feeling well is because their gut gets disrupted, the intestinal microbiome gets disrupted. But here's butyrate that almost exclusively works through epigenetics. So it prevents and kills cancer cells 5 different ways. It's great for the lungs, great for the brain, great for the eyes. We actually can use things as supplements that work through epigenetics, at least until the body can make it on its own. there's a really important thing we use a lot therapeutically called TUDCA, TUDCA. Uh, it's short for ur taurourso deoxycholic acid. Is supposed to be made by the liver. Well, one of the ways that TUDCA works is through epigenetics. And so the liver's supposed to make this TUDCA to keep everything great epigenetically. Well, we can use it as a capsule epigenetically, fix the whole system, and then the liver makes TUDCA all by itself, and then you maintain this good epigenetics long term. And so these are the kind of things that, ideally the body's supposed to be doing on its own, but that something gets in the way. We figure out what that something is, like maybe the liver can't make enough TUDCA. Maybe the good bacteria have been disrupted, maybe because of antibiotics or stress or a lot of medicines. Well, it can't make the butyrate. Well, we can give you the butyrate. Well, now the body's fixed. It makes its own butyrate. It makes its own TUDCA. It's flipping genes all by itself. But this is where, once you get the epigenetics in a good place and a person feels a lot better, well, then the body just keeps it going all by itself. And this is where you lock people in place, such as when before somebody's 19, you lock them in place and now the body just does it all by itself and you stay healthy long term.
Mhm. That is such an interesting study, Dr. David. And I mean, really, really interesting. And I guess this scientifically removes that, huge misconception around functional medicine or, this wellness hacks that people call that, um, uh, I mean, the world is more practical and it cannot be like your body cannot be like healed by itself or something like meditation or mindfulness or all those kinds of modalities. So this is really a scientific, this gives definitely such a practical and scientific outlook to this. So thanks
Yeah.
for
And
sharing.
that's and that's what's wonderful about the science. There's been such an explosion of medical knowledge the last 20 years.
Mhm.
And when you talk about a lot of these kind of things, people maybe just think, well, there's probably not any scientific data to talk about that. There is thousands of articles about anything you can imagine. There's so much data. It's just that people don't know the science, but the science is there. And if somebody says, oh, there's no science to back that up, they just haven't done their homework because it's out there for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's bold. Oh, great, great, Dr. David. So before we wrap up, a bit of a flip side, perspective I would like to keep. Um, so there's a growing awareness about healing, but then also growing fatigue. Supplements, protocols, and diets. This diet and that diet. I always keep on learning about different kinds of diets. How do we avoid replacing one rigid medical model with another, quote unquote wellness dogma?
Well, when it comes to what I'm talking about, you kind of look at it, it always takes more to get good than to stay good. So if you're trying to take somebody who's really not very healthy, uh, it's going to take some changes, right? But once your body is healed and fixed, it's so much easier to stay healthy. So you may say, well, here's, you know, 5, 7 different supplements I need to take every day as I'm trying to fix all this. Well, once you get healed and your body takes over and does all the work, you might only need 2 because now the body's doing all the work. You don't need so much help from the outside. I'm going to make these nutritional changes. I'm going to do the best I can. Well, it takes more to get good than to stay good. So once you do get good, you don't have to be nearly as rigid on how you eat because your body's taking over and doing all the work. So things like foods, where there's certain foods that can create inflammation, delayed sensitivity reactions. Well, you get rid of those foods that are identified on a specific way of testing, a little finger prick test. You say, okay, these foods are creating inflammation days or weeks after I consume them, maybe even months after I consume them. But now I know which ones they are. I'm going to get rid of them temporarily. Because then once you get quite a bit better, I usually say like 80 to 85% better overall, then we're like, okay, should have fixed the gut enough that you fix these food sensitivities. We're going to start bringing them back in one at a time. Let your body tell us ready for them. And so people can fix food sensitivities. Maybe they avoid some for a while, but now you're fixed. Now they don't bug you. You don't have to avoid them any longer. Hey, I had to use these supplements to get better. Butyrate, Tudka, all that kind of things like that. Well, now my takes them all by themselves. I don't even need those supplements anymore. And so if you really get at the root cause, you really don't need to do a lot to stay healthy. You need to do more to get healthy. But once you get healthy, you don't have to do nearly as much to stay healthy. It's a lot easier. Now, if you don't really fix these really important root causes, you may need to be perfect in all these areas because your body hasn't really taken over yet. You got to use all this other stuff instead. But if you actually get at the root cause and get the body to heal, well, then it takes over and does most of the work all by itself.
That totally makes sense. Great, Dr. David. So, if our listeners would like to get in touch with you and get some of these golden nuggets discussed today about our beautiful, bodies full of wisdom, what will be the best way to do that?
Well, thank you. Yeah, my website is drdavidbilstrom.com. And uh, we love to teach people this and we want everybody to know this. So we actually have courses and classes for medical people, for non medical people. We have blog posts, Wellness Wednesdays, emails. We really want everybody to know this information. And if you know why you might not be feeling well, you're in a great place to fix it, even all by yourself.
Superb. I'll make sure to have all the links mentioned in the show notes. And Dr. David, thank you so much for reminding us that that our bodies are not broken machines. They are ecosystems. They are like biome. And with the right understanding and information and addressing the root cause, even generations of disease can begin to reverse. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So, listeners, I hope that and I love to say this from today's conversation that your health story isn't over, and maybe, just maybe, it's only the beginning. Until next time, stay mindful, stay curious, and keep living with intention. To connect with Dr. David Bilstrom and to get access to his resources, just refer to the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And until then, this is your host Sana signing off from The Mindful Living. Thank you.